Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine. Tonight, we begin chapter 22, The Problem of Life, and as always, with our beloved Ranga.
The problem of life. This it is that is called the universal life. Taittiriya Upanishad. The Lord is seated in the heart of all beings, turning all beings mounted upon a machine by his Maya. From the Gita. He who knows the truth, the knowledge, the infinity that is Brahman, shall enjoy with the all-wise Brahman all objects of desire. Taittiriya Upanishad. Life is, we have seen, the putting forth under certain cosmic circumstances of a conscious force which is in its own nature infinite, absolute, untrammeled, inalienably possessed of its own unity and bliss, the conscious force of Satchidananda. The central circumstance of this cosmic process, insofar as it differs in its appearances from the purity of the infinite existence and the self-possession of the undivided energy, is the dividing faculty of the mind, obscured by ignorance. There results from this divided action of an undivided force the apparition of dualities, oppositions, seeming denials of the nature of Satchidananda, which exist as an abiding reality for the mind, but only as a phenomenon, misrepresenting a manifold reality for the divine cosmic consciousness concealed behind the veil of mind. Hence, the world takes on the appearance of a clash of opposing truths, each seeking to fulfill itself, each having the right to fulfillment, and therefore of a mass of problems and mysteries which have to be solved, because behind all this confusion there is the hidden truth and unity pressing for the solution, and by the solution for its own unveiled manifestation in the world. We go sentence by sentence, okay? So as usual, he's a small summary he's doing. The first paragraph always is some sort of a summary. Sometimes he adds a little more information. Life is, we have seen, the putting forth under certain cosmic circumstances of a conscious force which is in its own nature infinite, absolute, untrammeled, inalienably possessed of its own unity and bliss, the conscious force of Satchidananda. So, he is establishing the connection between the Satchidananda and the physical world. And that connection is very important for him. He goes on repeating this everywhere. That allows a divine consciousness in the physical world and a transformation of matter. If the connection is not there, a divine life on earth is not possible. So, now he's saying life as we see here is only an expression of the conscious force of Satchidananda. Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Chit, Shakti, when it descends under cosmic circumstances, we'll see what those cosmic circumstances are, it becomes life here. So, although the conscious force in Satchidananda is infinite, absolute, untrammeled, inalienably possessed of its own unity and bliss. Srivamsa is very fond of the word possessed. In other words, it is master of what it contains. When you possess something, it's absolutely under your control. You are master of it. So, this conscious force is possessed of its own unity and bliss. It's not something coming from outside, it's his own completely. But this conscious force, which is absolute, untrammeled, inalienably possessed of it, becomes here life, which seems to be absolutely the opposite of what it is there. And those are the cosmic circumstances, the necessity of division and the necessity of diminution. These are the cosmic circumstances. So when that is coming down, it has to give form to itself. It is without form, it has to give form, therefore it gets limited, and when it gets limited, all the consequences of limitation, imperfection, and also apparently imperfection. That's what he will tell you. Behind that, essentially, the cosmic force is there behind, the conscious force is there behind everything in life. Okay, so see how detailed his description is. Life is, we have seen, the putting forth. So putting forth, but it can come down in full glory in its original. No. It is a putting forth under certain circumstances, cosmic circumstances. It gets subjected to the cosmic circumstances. And the cosmic circumstances are division and ignorance and a veiling of itself. These are the conditions of the cosmic conditions. Okay, so that which is absolute, untrammeled, without any obstruction, without totally free, inalienably possessed of its own unity and bliss. Conscious force is in possession of bliss. When it comes down, life is hardly, it contains its bliss. Little bits of pleasure we have, but not bliss. Okay, we go to the next sentence. The central circumstance of this cosmic process, insofar as it differs in its appearances from the purity of the infinite existence and the self-possession of the undivided energy, is a dividing faculty of the mind obscured by ignorance. So he is telling you what the cosmic circumstances are. It is the central circumstance. He has used the word circumstance even earlier. Under certain cosmic circumstances, so now he is telling you what the circumstances are, but he is giving you only the central one first. Very, very precise language. So, the central circumstance of this cosmic process, insofar as it differs in its appearances, again, appearances, that is infinite, this is finite. That is total bliss, this is a mixture of pleasure and unhappiness. So, in its appearances, from the purity of the infinite existence and the self-possession of the undivided energy. There it is absolute and undivided. Here the energy becomes divided. You have multiplicity here in the physical world. From the purity. And what is causing that? The action of mind. That's what he's saying. The appearance from the purity of the infinite and the self-possession of the undivided energy is a dividing faculty of the mind obscured by ignorance. So it is mind, as we have seen. In the supermind, total unity, total bliss, total, everything total. When it comes down, the overmind, the division starts. It is mind that makes the division. So, and that division is causing the ignorance. It is getting obscured by ignorance. You can see it in another way also. If total light on top, as it keeps coming down, it becomes darker and more limited. Think of the ocean. If you think of the ocean, that's a very good image. At the highest level, even if you go 1 meter down or 2 meters down and look up, you will see light. You keep going down, pressure increases, density increases, darkness increases. This is our condition in the physical world. Okay? And that is being caused by mind. At the overmind level, this process of ignorance starts. Ignorance and division. Okay, so there results from this divided action of an undivided force. The force is undivided. Even here it is not divided, but you are looking at it as if it is divided. It is like, if I remove my specs, I see the undividedness. I am in knowledge. As soon as I am in ignorance, I put on my spectacles, they are broken and I see division. You can see it in that way. Ignorance is the breaking up of your senses. You see, I am saying spectacles, but your senses also are spectacles. You are receiving the physical world through your senses. And the senses are distorting the reality. Okay? So, there results from this divided action of an undivided force the apparition of dualities, oppositions, seeming denials of the nature of Satchidananda, which exist as an abiding reality for the mind, but only as a phenomenon misrepresenting a manifold reality for the divine cosmic consciousness concealed behind the veil of mind. Complex language, but we'll see what he's saying. Look at each word. very revealing what he says. There results from this divided action of an undivided force the apparition of dualities, oppositions, seeming denials. We'll take up first dualities and oppositions. Okay. When the divine is creating, he creates infinitely. Anything that he takes up, he creates infinitely. He doesn't create only a one section of something. He doesn't create light only of one intensity. He'll create light of infinite intensity and also lesser. Even darkness is light in different grades. So what is opposition to us is not really opposition to him. He is only creating infinitely. So you have two poles of the same phenomena, and we are seeing the opposition, and we are saying darkness and light is opposite. Generosity and miserliness is opposite. Good and evil are opposites. They are not. They are only two poles of the same thing, because he is creating infinitely. Take also sound or light or anything. It's always these two poles that are there. There is also the problem of the evil and suffering and all that. You have the problem always of the cruelty and the... So it's the same. When you change your circumstance, you change your angle of vision, you see the oneness behind everything. So long as you are in the ignorance of body, mind, life, you will see division and you will see opposites, dualities and oppositions. Okay? This is the thing. So,
But the cruelty doesn't disappear.
which one?
On that level, the cruelty does not disappear.
The cruelty will, the way you are looking at it will disappear.
Yes,
It will
correct.
be only, what you are seeing as cruelty here will only be action of a certain intensity.
Viewed from a much higher...
Yes, when you are at a higher level of consciousness,
Right.
okay, take the storm, okay? You see, a wind blowing very softly is pleasant to you. That same wind blowing more intensely becomes a storm and you don't like the storm. So it's your capacity to receive the impact from the physical world that is causing pain and pleasure. Your incapacity to receive the impact from the physical world because your capacity is limited. If you increase your capacity, everything that is coming cannot be bigger than your force to receive it. There will be no pain.
And man's inhumanity to man.
Yes, these are only actions. These are only forces that are operating. We are seeing them as cruelty. We are interpreting, because that which is unpleasant to us, we are interpreting as something bad.
I understand that. Sri Aurobindo is very clear when he says, this is a battle.
This is a?
This yoga is a battle.
Yes. Okay.
Now why is
At this level, it's a battle.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. Here it is certainly a battle.
And Mother says there are these dark forces, these Asuric forces that are trying to hold their own, and they will do any kind of evil
That's
to
right.
maintain their position until the
Absolutely.
supermind.
These are the opposite forces. There are forces of good and there are forces of evil also, and they have a purpose in the physical world. They have a purpose. But Srendo, in later chapters, the origin of evil, there is a chapter called The Origin of Evil, where he describes that this whole problem of evil starts at the vital level. When you go beyond the vital level, these forces are not there.
Ah, see, this is very interesting.
And also you change your angle of vision. So and they have a purpose. We are seeing pain also has a purpose, and these evil forces also have a purpose. And what is that purpose? They are in the Vedic, in Life Divine also he told, restrainers. They restrain you from going beyond a certain, because you are imperfect. They point out your defects. They point out very unpleasantly, but they are pointing out your defects. So they have a purpose.
Yes, they also have a purpose to spur you on to grow higher.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing.
In the
So they have a
Hindu
purpose.
Mystic Fire, it's written that these forces have a dual purpose. One is to upset the apple cart, and by doing so, they spur a man either to pull him down or give him a chance to climb up.
That's right.
And so they are fulfilling their divine purpose.
Just like pain also. Pain also is a spur for you to go beyond the pain and go higher up. If there is no pain and you are satisfied fully with your condition, you will not make any effort at progress. So that's the whole point.
He writes in Savitri about these beings, these forces, that
Yeah.
they wept to know that their end was coming soon and they would be united in the divine. It's a beautiful passage.
Okay, so that which is seems to be divided at our level is actually behind the division. There is a divine unity. So, I'm reading that sentence again. There results from this divided action of an undivided force. The undivided force at the Satchidananda level, the apparition of dualities, oppositions, seeming denials of the nature of Satchidananda. That is pure bliss, and there is pain and suffering and indifference. That is infinite, this is finite. In every way, it's the opposite. Okay. But it's a seeming opposite, seeming denial also. The nature of Satchidananda, which exists as an abiding reality for the mind, but misrepresented, it's a phenomenon. The word phenomenon you have to understand. Any event in the physical world is a phenomenon. It's a starting point and an ending point. The opposite is a noumenon, which never changes at all. It is static and permanent. This is phenomenon, that is noumenon. The self, the experience of the self, when you go, you see that it is static, immobile, infinite, immutable. It's perfect by itself. You can call it the Brahman consciousness, you can call it the Nirvana. It is the same. So, misrepresenting a manifold reality for the divine cosmic consciousness concealed behind the veil of mind. So, when you go beyond the mind, the veil is removed and you see the oneness. That's what he's saying. Then, hence, the world takes on the appearance of a clash of opposing truths, each seeking to fulfill itself, each having the right to fulfillment, and therefore of a mass of problems and mysteries which have to be solved, because behind all this confusion there is the hidden truth and unity pressing for the solution, and by the solution for its own unveiled manifestation in the world. And when can that solution be found? As you keep mounting higher and higher, higher and higher, however high you climb, the division is not healed. Even up to the overmind level, the division is not healed. As soon as you go into the supramental world, the division disappears. And if that can be brought down here into the physical world, you will have a new supramental race.
Now he speaks of truths here, opposing truths.
Yes, that's the thing. These oppositions, both are truths. Darkness is a truth, light is a truth.
Yes.
Even evil is a truth. That's the whole point.
Yes, yes.
For him, there is no evil. There is no. We are calling it that. As I said, he uses also two poles of the same reality. There are two poles. Even science says that. This you have to see. Hot and cold. They are not opposites. Cold is only the absence of heat. There is only heat is the truth. There is no cold. When that cold becomes, the heat becomes less and less and less, it becomes cold. It's not the opposite.
So same like light and darkness.
Yes,
no
exactly
such
the
thing as
same.
darkness, it's
Yes,
absence of light.
that's right. You can apply this principle to everything. Good and evil. They are same, essentially the same vibration at a different frequency. You can take them that way.
Could you say the reverse? Ice becoming warmer and warmer,
Yeah,
finally.
that's right.
You can't say it both ways. But you're saying it from an involutionary point.
Yes. That which is subtle becomes gross.
Got it.
And that which is gross here has to become subtle through yoga.
Exactly.
That's right. Okay? So he's saying that a solution has to be sought for this, and to solve the solution, you have to go right up to the... Again, if we take the image of the sea, it's very interesting. Okay? If I take a 100-watt bulb and shine it over the surface of the sea, maybe it will go down to 5 meters. But it cannot cure the darkness of the lower levels. So what do? I have to take a more intense light. I take a 500-watt bulb, it will go down even more. Which is that intensity of light which will go down to the last depth? Supermind. This is what you have to understand. So, however high you go, even overmind doesn't, that letter which I gave you just now, that overmind consciousness also, he realizes that it has no power to change the lower. Only the supreme supermind has got the power to change even matter. Otherwise, it won't change. If you go high enough, it will change your mind. There are many yogis who have completely changed their mind, okay, full of light and knowledge. Some are there even more, even their vital is pure, is purified. But the body remains still untransformed.
The Vedic rishis knew of the supermind.
They knew about it.
And some of them have brought it into the upper parts of their bodies,
Yes.
but not in the physical.
No. Even if a touch of the supermind is there in the body, when the body got transformed altogether, we have seen that light, the golden color. He was a dark person and he became a golden color he had. And even after he passed away, for 3-4 days, that light was there above his body, golden light. Everybody saw it.
Really, everyone saw it.
Yeah, they don't even. The doctors came because if you can't keep a body for 5 days, it's illegal. But they allowed it because they saw that there is no decomposition at all. And actually, Udar objected. Even on the 5th day, Udar said, "Mother, why are you putting it into a coffin now? There is no decomposition at all." So Mother said, "No, the light has faded a little bit, so we'll do what is necessary." So after the 5th day, 5th December, 9th December.
I had understood that many people didn't see it.
Yes.
That Udar couldn't see it. And he said, "Mother, I want to see it." She touched his head and he saw the golden light. And I asked Aurobindo Basu about it, and he said, not only his body, the whole courtyard was golden. Imagine that.
So, this is what he is saying. So, the solution that he is saying, we have to find a solution to this problem of opposites and oppositions here. Where will you find the solution? You have to go right to the top. Your individual solution will be found as soon as you make your mind silent and go to the higher mind level. Individually, no problem. But collectively, in the physical world, outside yourself.
So even in illumined mind, intuitive mind, not possible.
No. For you, the problem is solved. There is no more pain,
Right,
no more suffering.
individually, yes.
Yeah, but the physical world, no change. Okay. So, this solution has to be sought by the mind, but not by the mind alone. It has to be a solution in life, in act of being, as well as in consciousness of being. Consciousness as force has created the world movement and its problems. Consciousness as force has to solve the problems it has created and carry the world movement to the inevitable fulfillment of its secret sense and evolving truth. But this life has taken successively 3 appearances. The first is material. A submerged consciousness is concealed in its own superficial expressive action and representative forms of force. For the consciousness itself disappears from view in the act and is lost in the form. A second is vital. An emerging consciousness is half apparent as power of life and process of the growth, activity and decay of form. It is half delivered out of its original imprisonment. It has become vibrant in power as vital craving and satisfaction or repulsion, but at first not at all, and then only imperfectly vibrant in light as knowledge of its own self-existence and its environment. Huge sentence. The third is mental. An emerged consciousness reflects fact of life as mental sense and responsive perception and idea. Mental sense and responsive perception and idea, while as new idea it tries to become fact of life, modifies the internal and attempts to modify conformably the external existence of the being. Here in mind, Consciousness is delivered out of its imprisonment in the act and form of its own force. But it is not yet master of the act and form because it has emerged as an individual consciousness and is aware therefore only of a fragmentary movement of its own total activities. Complex language, but we'll see what he's saying. The solution has to be sought by the mind, but not by the mind alone. If you solve it only by the mind, it remains theoretical, but it doesn't become a practical fact in life. So Sri Aurobindo is saying it has to become practical fact in life, not only at the higher level. When you ascend in consciousness, you get knowledge, you maybe have power also, you may have bliss, your soul may have, but the body-mind life remains untransformed. I just give you one letter of, I keep quoting this one. Mother wrote to, Sri Aurobindo wrote to Mother, in the early days, the heavens we have possessed, but not yet the earth. This is exactly what he is saying. So you have to possess the earth also with that knowledge, with that power, with that bliss. But it's not easy to bring down that which you have experienced at the higher level, to bring it down. Again, the image of the ocean, the light that goes down only to a certain extent is not going down fully. So it remains untransformed.
Do you take that quotation as Sri Aurobindo speaking generally about humanity?
No, he is speaking only of Mother and service.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
Yeah. We have possessed the earth, but not yet. We have possessed the heaven, but not yet the earth. Later on, of course, that was the attempt being made.
Right.
And the earth would be possessed fully only if the supermind descended. That was the work they were engaged in. Okay, so he's saying it has to be a solution in life, in act of being, in action. It's not only mental conception, it's the act of, in as well as in consciousness of being. Okay, now he's talking of being, he's talking of here first mind, then life, then being. The word being you have to interpret as physical. The physical. It has to even change the physical aspect of life. Okay, so consciousness as force has created the world movement and its problems. That's clear, huh? The conscious force has come down and the oppositions are there. So it has created the problems. And it has created, has it gone? Yeah. Consciousness as force has to solve the problems it has created and carry the world movement to the inevitable fulfillment of its secret sense and evolving truth. So, the world movement, even in the physical world, there has to be an individual transforming himself won't do. Even there has to be a transformation. And what he means by that is another level of consciousness where the race will be there who are at a diviner level than man. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that the whole universe will change. It can't mean that. When man has appeared on the scene, the animals are still there. They are at a lower level. When the supramental race comes, man will also be there, but the earth is now capable of housing a divine consciousness and a divine higher level of consciousness. So the divine is revealing himself in bits and pieces slowly, little by little.
So
Everything doesn't change.
when we look at the great yogis around Sri Aurobindo, was there a group?
He wanted a group. That's what he says, that if
12 people.
an individual doesn't have the power to change everything. So I need a group. And when the group is there, it's like a bundle of sticks which have more power than just one stick. So he wanted 100 men who were capable of that. Finally, he could not get 100 men. He came down to 12 men.
Yes.
And even that he could not.
Yes. Yes.
So he had to do the work himself. But
What I had heard was that you need a crucial number
yeah.
for any species to take,
Evolve.
evolve on Earth, establish itself.
Yeah.
You need a crucial number. This is what he was saying about 100 or then
Yeah.
at least 12.
In fact, Niruddha asks him, he says, does your work of bringing down the supermind depend upon us? So this is fortunately not.
Yeah, that's another question that was asked to Mother also. They said, what want from us? Mother says nothing.
Exactly.
What do we need from you? What do we want from you? Everything.
That's right. Okay, so consciousness has come down and created the problems. It has to itself solve the problems. So, but this life has taken successively 3 appearances. And to put it in very short, first it has created matter, then it has created life, and then it has created mind. So he is describing that. Okay, so the first is material, and he is describing what that material is. A submerged consciousness is concealed in its own superficial expressive action and representative forms of force. The word expressive is very interesting. He constantly uses the universe is an expression of the divine. Just like a poem is the expression of the poet, so exactly the universe is expression of the divine. So he's using the word expressive in that sense. Okay, so he's saying submerged consciousness, submerged because it has gone down into the deep into the ocean and enveloped itself in darkness. So the first is material. Submerged consciousness is concealed in its own superficial expressive action and representative forms of force. That which is pure force is represented here by forms. That is unlimited, this has become limited forms. Behind the forms, there is the unlimited consciousness force. You have to see that, and you can see that only when you rise in consciousness. You can see that the divine presence is there everywhere, even in limited things. That's what he's saying. It's concealed in its own superficial expressive action and representative forms of force. For the consciousness itself disappears from view in the act and is lost in the form. So, consciousness is coming down, it is creating forms, and it gets hidden in forms. It is there in the form, but it gets hidden and it gets submerged. So, in the act. Now, when he is talking of the act, again there is an interesting thing. Action is Prakriti, movement. But Purusha is, consciousness is Purusha. So, when Prakriti is let loose and it is creating the world, consciousness hides into it. At the lower level, Prakriti is dominant, action is dominant, consciousness is hiding in it. If you go down to the atomic level, there is constant movement. This is the movement of Prakriti. But hidden in the atom is the consciousness, but it is hiding. As you keep climbing higher and higher, consciousness is slowly emerging, first in the form of life, that's what it will tell you, then in the form of mind, and when you go beyond the mind, consciousness becomes liberated, and now it becomes immutable. So, force is held back. At the lower level, force is dominant, sitting on consciousness and not allowing it to express itself. In matter, there is no consciousness. As it keeps coming, life, mind, and finally you go above the mind, consciousness becomes full. No more immutability means force is not allowed to make any move. It is held back. They are opposite, they are inversely proportional to each other. At the lower level, consciousness, very, very low level. Force, infinite force. That's why you can extract nuclear energy out of matter. The force is there. But as you keep going up, you come to the self, the nirvana consciousness. Consciousness is full. Knowledge is there, but no action. You are in immutable consciousness. Somewhat like the water behind the dam. That's one image which you give. There is force, but it's not allowed to act.
It's held back.
It is held back. Also, there is another image also you can use for that. The horses before the race. They are not idle. The horses are full of power, but they are not moving. When consciousness says, yes, you can move, it creates a world. Okay? So, then, he is describing matter. Matter is, consciousness has hidden itself in the form and it got lost in the action. Prakriti is dominating the consciousness, Purusha. The second is vital. An emerging consciousness is half apparent as power of life and process of the growth, activity and decay of form. He is describing life. All life, there is growth, there is activity, and finally decay of form, death. This is the description of life. Okay? It is half delivered out of its original imprisonment. The consciousness is imprisoned in matter, half delivered. Now it can move about, but it can't think still. It is half delivered. Okay? Out of its original imprisonment, it has become vibrant in power as vital craving and satisfaction or repulsion. So, when the first it comes out, it takes the form of craving. It wants to get back to what it has lost. So, it wants to go back. That's vital craving. And satisfaction or repulsion. It gets satisfied or there is a repulsion. That's again the dualities, because there are dualities here. But at first, not at all, and then only imperfectly, vibrant in light as knowledge of its own self-existence in its environment. The third is mental. An emerged consciousness reflects facts of life as mental sense and responsive perception and idea, while as new idea it tries to become fact of life, modifies the internal and attempts to modify conformably the external existence of the being. The language is a little complex, but when you think of science, you know what he's saying. He's saying when mind comes into the picture, it modifies the internal, it tries to improve itself and modify conformably the external existence. That's what science is doing. It is improving your health, it is improving your living conditions, it is making life easy, it is influencing the external. He's talking about that. The language is very almost abstract, but you have to see what he's saying behind it. Okay, so the animal can't change the external circumstances, but mind is changing the external circumstances through science. Okay, so modifies the internal, attempts to modify the conformably the external existence of being. Here in mind, consciousness is delivered out of its imprisonment in the act and form of its own force. That consciousness which is hiding in matter comes out partly in life, and when it comes to mind, it is now capable of releasing itself from its imprisonment. So, when you do yoga, your consciousness, your soul can come out of your body, mind, life, feel that it is free. That is liberation. That is mukti. So, you are no more subject to your body, mind, life. You are free of it. In fact, you may see it even outside yourself. That is liberation. Okay, so here in mind, consciousness is delivered out of its imprisonment in the act and form of its force. You understand the word act? Movement. That is act. So at the material level, act. That act is hiding the consciousness. But now it can get free of that act. And that's why it becomes immutable. No movement at all when you are in the self. Okay? But it is not yet master of the act and form because it has emerged as an individual consciousness and is aware therefore only of a fragmentary movement of its own total activities. When the soul comes out and goes to the higher mind level, it is free, but it doesn't control the body-mind life. It has no power over the body-mind life. So you feel yourself to be separate. You experience Purusha and you see Prakriti as separate from yourself and it is going on its own way. So there is a beautiful poem, Self. So that describes this. So the one who has freed himself says, I am totally free. And then swears when his dinner is not ready. And then says, how come? He says, I am not shouting. It's the belly that is shouting. And that is a fact, because that's exactly, he has put it in a very ironical manner, but that's exactly what you feel. The body continues with its old habits. If it gets angry, it gets angry. If it has got all wrong movements also. But the soul will say, that's not me, that's the body. That's the experience that you have. Total separation of the two. So, when can you control the lower? As you keep going higher and higher, more and more control comes into the being. This is described in the Gita, that when you are the lower, you are only witness. You are witnessing your own imperfections, but you are not affected by them. You are just watching. Because there is no good and bad at that level. No? So you don't judge things which you were seeing as bad in yourself, telling lies, getting angry, now it is only an action of a certain type. You are not interested in describing it as good or bad. Morality disappears. Even Nietzsche has written an article or a book maybe, Beyond Good and Evil. So when you go beyond out of your body-mind life, you are beyond good and evil. Good and evil are the same. Just now we discussed that poles. So that's what you realize, that you are beyond this good and evil. Okay? But you have no power over the lower. When can you get the power? As you keep going higher and higher and higher, you have power more and more. You go one more step, you can control your mind. You go one more step, maybe you can control your vital. When will you fully change your body? Only at the supramental level, which has not yet been done. That's what he's saying. Okay? Clear? So, but it has not yet mastered of the act and form, because it has emerged as an individual consciousness and is aware therefore only of a fragmentary movement of its own total activities. It is not yet conscious of the higher levels of its consciousness. We go to the next para?
Yes.
The whole crux and difficulty of human life lies here. Man is this mental being, this mental consciousness, working as mental force, aware in a way of the universal force and life of which he is a part, but because he has not knowledge of its universality or even of the totality of his own being, unable to deal either with life in general or with his own life in a really effective and victorious movement of mastery. This is the problem. He seeks to know matter in order to be master of the material environment, to know life in order to be master of the vital existence, to know mind in order to be master of the great obscure movement of mentality in which he is not only a jet of light of self-consciousness like the animal, but also more and more a flame of growing knowledge. Beautiful description. So, man, he is describing man as a jet of light. Just little bit of light is there. Don't interpret jet as very big. It is a very small amount of light that is there in the human being. Like the animal also is a small jet of light. Man is slightly larger jet of light maybe, but not at all full light. Okay, so thus he seeks to know himself in order to be master of himself, to know the world in order to be master of the world. This is the urge of existence in him, the necessity of the consciousness he is, the impulsion of the force that is his life, the secret will of Satchidananda, appearing as the individual in a world in which he expresses and yet seems to deny himself. To find the conditions under which this inner impulsion is satisfied is the problem man must strive always to resolve, and to that he is compelled by the very nature of his own existence and by the deity seated within him. And until the problem is solved, the impulse satisfied, the human race cannot rest from its labor. Either man must fulfill himself by satisfying the divine within him, or he must produce out of himself a new and greater being who will be more capable of satisfying it. He must either himself become a divine humanity or give place to Superman. This idea he goes on elsewhere also. In the beginning I used to get a little confused. He is talking of evolution. Then why is he saying suddenly it will stop and why Superman will come? But this is a possibility. Just like nature also sometimes interrupts her own evolution. Elephants are there, but the mastodon and the mammoth have disappeared. So like that, same thing here also. It's possible. It's one of the possibilities of nature that the man will remain static or even disappear and Superman will come instead. This repeats in many places. But then mother had the experience later on that no, it will be an evolutionary being, and between ordinary man and Superman there will be an intermediate race. That will be what she called the Surong. Yeah. So it will be an evolutionary thing.
What does he mean by a divine humanity here?
Pardon?
What does he mean by a divine humanity here? Like the whole of humanity?
No, not whole.
Not whole.
No. Those who are ready. So, In other words, matter is showing that I am capable of producing this type of thing. Just think of the brain also. First of all, there is only matter. Okay? It is dead. There is no life in it. But suddenly, life comes into matter. So matter is saying, I am capable of not only being dead but also living. So matter itself starts becoming life. Then it says, I can also start thinking. Your brain is matter which is capable of thought. So brain is mentalized matter. So why can't there be a supramentalized matter? That's what he's saying.
But I'm also questioning that last sentence, not clear. He must either himself become a divine humanity.
Yes. He's
But
talking the
he's
supramental
speaking-
race.
Speaking of man.
Man, but divine. So it will be a man, that means an individual, but it will be a supramental race. This, what he is talking here is very clearly, become a divine humanity is a supramental race.
Or
But
give
I-
place to Superman.
Yeah. Or he is a divine humanity or Superman. The
Yeah,
man has to evolve or he has to give place to Superman.
No, but
Man himself has to evolve.
But even what Mother has said that it will be through evolution, but between the Superman and currently what human beings are, there is going to be an intermediary thing. So he is giving place to the intermediary who will give place to the Superman.
Yes.
So isn't it the same thing?
Probably.
that's
Like the intermediary will be the divine humanity.
Not fully.
On way to become
Not
a Superman.
fully.
On the way to
On the
become
way
a
to the super.
In fact, the intermediary almost exists even now. All the yogis, they are at a much higher level of consciousness than we are. But it will be much more generalized. That's what she means.
What I had heard was that you have yogis today who can extend their life at will.
Yes.
But the reason is because of their siddhi, their capacities that they have developed. But the moment they give it up, they will finish. But they have not, like we have a mind, whether we like it or not. When a child is born, he comes with a mind because the kosh is there. The kosh, I don't know how to say it in English.
The
sheath,
covering,
sheath
yeah.
is there. But the Vijnanamaya doesn't have a sheath as yet. So the yogi without the sheath is also able to expand his life, perpetuate himself till the day he decides that okay, no more, and he'll finish. And a day will come and the sheath of Vijnana will be there, and then every child born
Will
will
have
have
that
it
sheath.
Yeah.
because it is now there in
There's-
humanity.
One
But
thing is
before-
there, the supramental race will not be born
Oh yes.
in the biological way.
yes.
Correct.
When you are born in the biological way,
Then
there is a
that is-
limitation. So the supramental race will have the capacity of sui generis. It will
Yes.
have the capacity to
Oh, change its form.
it has to create itself, self-creation.
But when you are moving
Like
from
imaginable thing.
when you are going over the bridge, you know, just now it is reproduction through normal, but when it is sui generis, between the two there has to be so many
Levels.
levels and steps before
Yeah.
you can reach that.
So that the intermediate race will probably be biologically born only. It will be nature
And
created.
have that sheath.
Yeah. It will be a biologically
I
born.
think so.
And have that
yes.
sheath of immortality, you know, that the Vijnana Kosha will be there. And then again, I guess that.
So in this context, I can also mention, one second.
In the women of Japan, Mother is talking about the Superman,
Ah,
and she's talking about the importance of women.
yes.
And she makes a bold statement that the first Superman will be born of a woman.
I have to see the exact wording.
Maybe
Yeah.
Suho, maybe not Superman, but Suho.
She doesn't say Surhom, she uses the word Superman. Yeah.
In the, and you were
But you can interpret this statement in another way also, but I'll have to see the exact. Can you send me the.
Yes, I will send
You send me the text because you can interpret woman as the divine Prakriti.
Yes.
Then it makes sense. The divine Shakti.
But she's speaking to these women of Japan. I don't think so.
So I'll have to see the exact wording. What is
Well,
it?
anyway, if you were to look at it like this, that just now also it's women who are producing the people until you reach that Surom stage where they'll be multiplying themselves or changing their form, the regular way of reproduction
Will also change. Will also
Suroma
change,
is
right?
not the supramental being. Suroma is just.
that Kunti Putra Karna, so how it is that Kunti has produced the Karna?
Can you repeat?
In Mahabharata,
Ah,
Kunti Putra Karna.
ah.
So how she has
Oh,
But it's
that
not
is
only
symbolic,
two.
yeah.
It's all the children.
That is
all
symbolic.
of them are one of the gods.
God, Jesus Christ.
And Karna is the son of
Son.
the highest, but he doesn't know that. That also is a very clear symbol. He doesn't know who his father is. So that's a symbol. But you are right, because that is
so that type of creation comes, no?
this is a myth. I mean, this is a theory, but it will happen. That not yet happened in earth.
The
Nobody
birth of Jesus Christ, immaculate.
Immaculate conception, yeah,
Conception,
Jesus.
yeah.
That also is there.
Yeah.
But you know,
Born of a woman.
even though in some place he puts a question mark on that immaculate conception.
Yeah.
Okay, it has not yet happened in the world.
No, yes.
So,
Yeah.
in fact, there are some stories on internet also. Just now I saw some people claiming that they have a child without the normal process. Yeah. So, but you can doubt that.
Because it's
Maybe it is possible. We don't know, but
Imagination.
it
No, it's
Imagination.
artificial insemination.
could be imagination. It could be anything. I don't know.
Body.
So let me just tell you one thing. When Sriranda passed away in 1950, mother asked him, because for her it was a huge event. And she
Yes,
asked him,
yes.
when will you manifest again? And he said, I will manifest again in the first supramental body.
Built in the supramental way.
Yes. Built in the supramental way means not in the biological
Yes,
method.
No.
Yes.
No, but
It will be the ultimate.
idealist plus realist.
Namaste.